The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Kingston estate, casting a warm glow on the immaculate living room. Emma Kingston sat on the sofa, her fingers tracing her sweater's hem as she stared at the family portrait. Her father, Richard, stood tall, exuding authority, while her mother, Diane, radiated elegance. Jake, her younger brother, grinned confidently. Emma, off to the side, seemed like an afterthought. People called us the perfect family, Emma thought bitterly. Richard was admired for his integrity, Diane for her poise, and Jake for being the golden boy. But Emma saw the cracks beneath the polish. In the kitchen, Diane arranged flowers with her usual grace. "Good morning, sweetheart," she greeted Emma. But her attention shifted as Jake entered, phone in hand, discussing a business deal. Diane beamed at him, her pride evident, while Emma quietly sipped her coffee, feeling invisible. Later, Emma wandered to the trophy display, where Jake's and Richard's achievements dominated. An old photo of her and Jake caught her eye, Jake celebrating a soccer win while she clutched a participation ribbon. It's not that I wasn't good enough, she thought. They never noticed me trying. The Kingston legacy was a brand, built on Richard's success and the family's image of perfection. But Emma always felt the surface was too perfect to be real. On a whim, she ordered a DNA test, curious about her roots. When the results arrived, her world shattered. Richard Kingston was not her biological father. Memories of Richard's distant demeanor resurfaced, each one now tinged with new meaning. Had he known? Did Diane? The revelation was a betrayal, exposing cracks in the family's perfect facade. Emma clutched the results, knowing this was only the beginning of unraveling the truth. Emma Kingston had always felt like a background figure in her own life. Richard, her father, showered attention on Jake, her younger brother, while Diane, her mother, maintained a poised perfection. Emma had memories of standing at the sidelines, hoping for Richard's approval, only to be overshadowed by Jake's effortless brilliance. The Kingston family seemed flawless to outsiders, but Emma knew the cracks ran deep. One impulsive decision changed everything. Emma sent off a DNA test, curious about her roots and hoping to connect with the family legacy she always felt excluded from. Weeks later, the results arrived. As she read them, her hands shook. Richard Kingston was not her biological father. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Memories flooded back. Richard's distance, the cold formality in his tone, the way he seemed to overlook her efforts entirely. Had he known? Did Diane? Emma confronted her mother in the kitchen, the DNA results clutched in her hand. Diane's smile faded when she saw the paper, and her face drained of color as she read the results. "I didn't want you to know," Diane admitted, her voice breaking. "I had an affair, over 25 years ago." Emma staggered under the weight of Diane's confession. "Why did you lie to me?" she demanded. Diane pleaded for her silence, fearing the truth would destroy their family's image. But Emma couldn't contain her anger. "You built this life on lies, and now I have to carry the burden?" Diane's tears didn't soothe Emma's pain. The Kingston name, their perfect family legacy, it was all a facade. Emma stormed out, her thoughts spiraling. Her family, once a beacon of perfection, was a house of cards collapsing around her. As Emma paced the halls, a gnawing suspicion took hold. Was this the only secret? Or were there more lies hidden beneath the surface? The answers, she realized, would come at a cost. But she couldn't live in the dark anymore. She had to uncover the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Jake had always been the golden child, unwavering in his connection to the Kingston name. But Emma had to act. The truth was tangled and she needed the final piece. "Hey Jake, I'm doing a genealogy project," Emma said casually, hiding the storm within. "Want to do a DNA test with me? Could be fun." Jake raised an eyebrow, his curiosity mild. "Sure, why not?" 2 weeks later, the results arrived. Sitting alone on her bed, Emma tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. Her heart sank. Jake wasn't Richard's biological son. Memories rushed back. Richard's favoritism toward Jake, Diane's awkward deflections about the past, the late-night arguments that seemed insignificant at the time. It all fit now. Their perfect family was built on lies. Then, an anonymous letter arrived. Richard's affair with his secretary lasted years. He may have fathered a child. You deserve the truth. Emma's world spun. Her father, the man she once admired, wasn't the rock she believed in. Diane, the family's moral compass, had concealed unforgivable truths. As the weight of deception pressed down on her, Emma knew she couldn't keep quiet. The truth would shatter their family, but the lies had already destroyed its foundation. Sitting at the dining table that evening, she studied her family. Richard, distant and weary. Diane, overly cheerful, masking guilt. Jake, oblivious, still basking in his role as the golden son. The perfect facade was about to crumble. Emma tightened her grip on the DNA results. It was time to confront the lies. No matter the cost, Emma's stomach churned as the silence stretched thin in the dining room. It wasn't true silence. It was the weight of unsaid truths. She had to do this. "Mom, Dad, Jake," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the false cheer. "I have something important to share." Diane's smile faltered. Richard's eyes flicked upward, suspicion crossing his face. Without hesitation, Emma slid the DNA results in the anonymous letter onto the table. "These are the results of the DNA tests I did," she said, her voice steady. "They're not just about me, they're about Jake too." Diane's hand trembled as she scanned the letter, her face paling. "Emma, this isn't what it seems." "It is," Emma interrupted coldly. "Jake isn't Dad's son, and neither am I." The words hit like a thunderclap. Richard's face drained of color. Diane's composure shattered. Jake sat frozen, disbelief etching every line of his face. "You lied to me?" His voice cracked. Diane reached out, but Jake stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "Don't," he muttered, storming out, the door slamming behind him. Diane crumbled into sobs. Richard's mask cracked, his voice raw with anger. "This is ancient history, Emma." "Ancient history." Emma's voice rose. "This lie has defined our lives." Richard stood, his fists clenched. "Enough." He stormed out, leaving Diane sobbing and Emma staring at the wreckage of their family. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Richard sat in his office, staring at the wall, his hands gripping the desk as his phone rang again. Another partner pulling away. Another friend retreating. His carefully constructed life was crumbling. Once the man everyone admired, he now felt their judgment with every glance, every clipped word. Alone in the quiet, his bitterness surfaced. "You've ruined everything," he told Emma one evening, his voice a mixture of anger and despair. The scandal didn't just tarnish his name, it threatened his business. Clients pulled contracts, investors fled, and layoffs loomed. Decades of work unraveled, leaving Richard powerless to stop the collapse. Jake, too, was unraveling. The revelation of his parentage consumed him, leaving him adrift. "I don't even know who I am anymore," he said, his voice hollow. Days blurred as he isolated himself, questioning his identity and future, the betrayal too much to bear. Emma bore the weight of the fallout. At work, in town, she felt the judgment in every whisper. "She's to blame," someone muttered as, she passed. But Emma knew the truth. The cracks had always been there. She had only exposed them. Diane finally broke. In a near-empty cafe, her voice trembled as she confessed. "It wasn't one mistake," she admitted. "It was years of lies, an affair I thought I could hide forever." Tears fell as she added, "I've ruined everything." Emma sat silently, the weight of the shattered truth pressing down on her. The family they once were could never be rebuilt. Diane's hands trembled as she gripped Emma's. "I wanted a perfect family, but I ruined everything. Now, I don't know how to fix it." Her voice cracked, raw with regret. Emma saw years of buried guilt surface in her mother's eyes. "I'm sorry for the affair, for the lies," Diane whispered. "Please, help me make it right. For Jake. For us." Emma's chest tightened. "I can't promise things will be the same, but we can try." Her words felt like a fragile lifeline, the first step toward healing. Later, Richard confronted her in the study, his anger sharp. "You did this," he spat. "You destroyed everything." Emma stood firm. The lies were already there. This was always going to happen. Richard's shoulders sagged under the weight of her words. "I've lost everything," he muttered. "You don't have to forgive me," Emma said, her voice steady. "But we all have to face the truth now." The next day, Diane asked Jake to meet. His guarded eyes revealed his turmoil. "I don't know if I can move on," he admitted. "You don't have to forgive her now," Emma said gently. "But we can try. Together." Sitting in the cafe, the tension between Diane, Jake, and Emma was heavy, yet Diane's voice held hope. "I want to rebuild even if it's one step at a time." Jake's response was cautious. "I'll try. I don't know how, but I'll try." It wasn't a resolution, but it was a start, a fragile crack in the walls they had built. When Emma returned to the estate, the silence felt hollow. The heirlooms and memories weighed her down no longer. As she packed her belongings, she realized the house, and its legacy, no longer defined her. Stepping onto the bustling city streets, Emma felt the hum of life around her. The past was behind her. For the first time, she felt free. Emma found a small apartment in a vibrant neighborhood, a place alive with creativity and possibility. Free from the weight of her family's expectations, she embraced this fresh start. Unpacking, she signed up for a pottery class, something she'd always wanted to try. The smooth clay in her hands brought peace, a tangible symbol of creating something new, something hers. As she poured herself into this new life, Emma felt her voice return, the passions buried by family obligations finally emerging. Each day was a new beginning. Meanwhile, Jake struggled with the weight of betrayal. Diane reached out not for forgiveness but to help him heal. Reluctantly, he started therapy. Unpacking his emotions was painful, but over time he began to understand his anger wasn't just about the affair. It was about years of deceit and feeling invisible. One difficult day, Jake called Emma. "I'm not okay, but I'm trying." Emma's heart ached for her brother. "I'm here, Jake, whatever you need." Their relationship began to mend, slowly and imperfectly. They found common ground in shared pain and a mutual desire to move forward. Sitting in Emma's apartment, they talked about dreams and what the future could hold. We've lived in their shadows too long, Jake said. It's time to make our own future. Emma smiled. We get to choose who we are now. Diane, meanwhile, sought redemption through volunteer work, sending small notes of encouragement to her children. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying. Richard, however, retreated into isolation, consumed by his regrets but unwilling to change. Emma returned to the family estate one last time. Walking through its hollow halls, she realized the legacy of lies no longer defined her. She was free. Later, Emma and Jake sat on her rooftop, gazing at the city lights. Do you think about the family we had? Jake asked softly. Not anymore, Emma replied. Family isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, resilience, and growth. Jake nodded. We've got each other, and that's enough. As they looked ahead, their future felt lighter. Together they had redefined family, built on truth and the strength to begin again. Emma wasn't the black sheep or the disappointment. She was the one with the courage to stand for what was right. The realization filled her with quiet pride. Choosing truth over comfort had made all the difference. Sitting in her apartment, she reflected on her parents, their lies, their flaws, and the damage they caused. Anger had consumed her for so long, especially toward Richard, but now, with distance, she saw them as imperfect people shaped by fear and pressure. Their choices had been wrong, but they weren't monsters. Forgiveness had felt impossible. How could she forgive such betrayal? But Emma realized forgiveness wasn't about excusing them. It was about freeing herself. Holding on to anger only kept her chained to the past. She took a shaky breath and let it go, feeling a small but profound shift. The truth had shattered her world, exposing painful secrets and tearing bonds apart, yet it had also set her free. For years she had suffocated under the weight of lies. Now, with the truth laid bare, she could breathe again. It wasn't easy, but it was the first step toward healing, for herself, for Jake, and even for Diane. Emma picked up her journal and began to write. Her story wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about truth, resilience, and finding strength in adversity. It was about how her family fell apart, and how they could begin to heal. Her words were a promise. Her legacy would be defined by courage, not the mistakes of others. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft purples and pinks, Emma closed her journal. The weight of the past lifted, leaving room for a future she was ready to shape. For the first time, Emma felt at peace. She had found her truth, and it would be the foundation of her new beginning.